Hey guys, what's going on? Welcome back. Today I want to talk about Path of Exile 3.27, Keepers of the Flame, and make sure you're fully set for launch. The plan is simple. I'll walk you through what's actually in this expansion, when it starts, how to prep fast, and what early decisions are going to matter once you're in maps. I'm going to keep it real and conversational, like we're hanging out before League start, because that's exactly the vibe. And yes, I'll only say the version number that one time, and then we're just calling it the expansion or the League from here on out. Cool. If you're planning to play right at release, pace your day, make sure your client is updated, and double check that your PoE account is linked to Twitch, because there are launch Twitch drops firing from the same start time. 2 weeks of drops are planned around the launch window, so even if you're busy during the reveal day stream, you'll still have stuff to grab at Go Live. Let's talk theme. Keepers of the Flame brings back and remixes a classic mechanic with a modern pass. If you've been around long enough to remember circles of monsters exploding out of a crack in reality, you know exactly what this is nodding to. The team has said they were careful to make it feel familiar without piling on clunk, taking tech improvements from recent updates, and applying them to make enemies smarter and the flow cleaner. There's also a new progression layer tied to the League's core fantasy, the Genesis tree. The short version is you're cultivating power, literally growing currencies, adjusting how items come out, and unlocking graft-like perks that change how your character operates. The grafts are meant to be tempting, but come with trade-offs, so you'll get that fun tension of, this is an insanely strong, but do I want to live with the downside? Right from your first serious steps into the League. It reads like a system that can feed both SF crafting goals and Trade League power spikes if you plan your routes through the tree. While we're on the topic of new toys, there are fresh skills showcased for the potentially thing, and a couple stand out immediately for clear and bossing. One of the eye catchers is a kinetic-themed skill that rains energy orbs, which trigger on contact. A spiritual cousin to those satisfying shotgun moments we all love on stationary bosses. There's also chatter and previews around defensive utility skills, like Somatic Shell, which looks like it will be a staple button for certain archetypes that want a reactive layer. If you're the type who builds your starter around new gems, this is your playground. If you prefer something proven, nothing stops you from slotting the new stuff later once you've stabilized your gear. A huge quality of life headline this time is trade getting simpler. If you were ever frustrated by the old routine of PMs, hideouts, and missed windows, you are not alone. The studio has talked up an asynchronous system to streamline exchanges so you can keep mapping while your items move. That doesn't just save time, it changes your day one strategy because you can flip early drops or snag key leveling uniques without completely halting progression. Expect the first weekend market to be more fluid and less tab-watching simulator. That's good for casuals and no-lifers alike. Endgame spice is coming from new boss-linked progression in the form of bloodline ascendancy options you can absorb from specific encounters. These are alternate packages of power with distinct identities and costs. Think of them as spicy modifiers that push you toward a style, not a blanket power creep everywhere. This is exciting for build crafters because it opens up real decision space. Do you chase a bloodline that turbocharges your clear at the expense of single target reliability? Or do you pick a bossing slant with some defensive drawback you'll have to plan around? The point is your Atlas routing and your boss goals matter more now. You can actually engineer your character's peak shape around your preferred fights. Okay, practical prep. Before launch day, update your loot filter. The devs posted item filter info specifically for this expansion, and it's always worth a quick skim because new currencies and League drops need visibility rules. If you build your own filter, add provisional tiers for the League items you expect to farm. If you use a community filter, grab the newest commit on launch day and do a quick sanity check in-game. Nothing kills momentum faster than hiding half the League just because your filter was stale. Let's talk League start mindset. On day one, your two enemies are time and indecision. The League mechanic seems front-loaded with ways to grow value, which means learning its early loops is worth more than rushing acts at any cost. Still, you don't want to wander. Pick a starter that you personally pilot well. Classic comfort picks like Toxic Rain Pathfinder, Righteous Fire, Bone Shatter, Explosive Trap, or an animate weapon minion setup all fit the bill because they scale off readily available stats and don't demand 6 specific uniques to function. If you're tempted by the new kinetic skill, consider leveling with a tried and true projectile setup you already understand. Then respect some sockets when you've got support gems, lab points, and a sense for how the damage actually feels on yellow maps. That way, you get the new skill experience without gambling your whole start on unknowns. I know some of you love to race. In that case, pre-plan your links, have your vendor recipe list ready, and map out when you'll swap from your axe skill to your real mapper. The new options can slide right into those plans without blowing them up. Early Atlas choices are going to sync with the Genesis tree nicely if you're deliberate. Ask yourself what you value most in the first 48 hours: raw currency, boss progress, or specific crafting bases. If you're going currency, stack nodes that push you into consistent, quick mechanics, and make sure your filter shouts about the league's new drops so you don't speed past something that should have you portaling out with a smile. If your plan is to rush bosses for bloodline picks, then build survivability into your tree a little earlier than usual. It's easy to forget that your day 1 resistances and EHP can look flimsy once you jump from Act 10 to Tier 5 maps. Give yourself the buffer. Once you grab your first bloodline, reassess your tree pathing. You might be able to drop or swap nodes because the perk is covering a weakness or supercharging a strength. I also want to be clear about drops and account linking. Do this now, not at launch. Sign into your Path of Exile account and link Twitch so the launch campaign counts, then bookmark the drops page to check progress once you're live. The reveal stream had its own reward window earlier, and for launch, there's a 2-week schedule kicking off at noon Pacific on the 31st. Even if you're not a cosmetics person, free stuff is free stuff, and these campaigns are usually easy passive value while you're watching streams during queues or breaks. Let's circle back to builds for a second because new skills always tempt us to get cute. The smarter path is often stable now, spice later. Level with a shell you've already tested. If you're an RF enjoyer, go Chieftain or Juggernaut, depending on how cozy you want your defenses. If you're a bow player, Toxic Rain doesn't care about perfect gear to feel good early, and a step from a 4-link to a 5-link is a huge quality jump you can plan for. Trap players can lean on Explosive Trap or Seismic to carry bosses. Minion folks who like a low-friction story mode will feel right at home with Animate Weapon or SRS into AW. Then, once you're mapping, start plugging in the new hotness. Try the Kinetic Gem, test Somatic Shell for your archetype, and see if it patches holes in your setup. The key is you're learning the league mechanic and securing your Atlas while everyone else is re-rolling because their day 1 experiment had mana or gearing problems. Another angle to think about is how trade improvements change your farming loop. With smoother, less interruptive trading, you can list mid-tier drops without feeling like you're torpedoing your rhythm. That tends to raise the effective value of random but useful uniques and fractured bases early, because more people can quickly convert them into upgrades and keep blasting. The meta effect is more liquidity in the first 24 to 48 hours, which nudges you toward checking your stash more often and actually pricing items instead of vendor dumping. The same principle applies inside your personal economy. The Genesis tree making item outcomes more predictable means those almost good drops are a lot closer to actually good, as long as you route toward the grafts that complement your build stats. For folks concerned about performance and stability, the best advice is the boring stuff that always works. Update drivers, clear your shader cache if you've had stutter since last league, and keep your renderer choice consistent unless you're troubleshooting. First hour usually brings some congestion, so don't judge a skill's smoothness from the Twilight Strand alone. Give it an act or two, then check again in early maps. Also, the studio's been pretty transparent about improving enemy behavior with newer tech, which generally translates to better feeling encounters once you're off the starting beach.